The metal doors of the medical station slid open with a soft hiss. Kyle Martinez ran through them, his boots making loud sounds on the shiny floor. His heart was beating fast. In his arms he carried Ghost, his search and rescue companion. The large gray and white animal was breathing in short, painful gasps. Blood stained Kyle's uniform and dripped onto the pristine white floor. The medical station was huge. Kyle had been to many alien places in his 5 years as a commander, but this one always made him feel small. The walls curved upward in strange angles that human eyes found hard to follow. Soft blue lights glowed from surfaces that seemed to have no source. Everything was clean, almost too clean. It smelled like chemicals and something else he could not name. Ghost whimpered. The sound cut through Kyle like a knife. He walked faster, nearly running now. Other beings moved through the corridors, stepping aside as they saw the human rushing past. They were tall, short, scaled, furred, crystalline. The station served hundreds of species. But right now, Kyle only cared about finding help. A floating sign appeared in front of him, displaying symbols in multiple languages. He followed the arrow pointing to the veterinary section. His translator earpiece crackled, converting the alien text to English. Turn left, 50 meters ahead. He adjusted Ghost in his arms, trying to be gentle even as he moved quickly. The accident had happened 3 hours ago. They had been on a rescue mission on a small moon. A mining colony had sent out a distress call. Collapsed tunnels. Trapped workers. Ghost had gone into the unstable area first, as he always did. His nose could find people that scanners missed. His smaller size let him go where humans could not. He had found 2 workers, alive but hurt. Kyle and his team had started pulling them out when the secondary collapse happened. A beam fell. Ghost pushed one of the miners out of the way. The beam hit Ghost instead. By the time they got him out from under the rubble, there was so much blood. The veterinary clinic appeared ahead. The doors were larger than the regular medical ones, designed to accommodate bigger creatures. Kyle pushed through them. Inside, the waiting area was empty except for a single desk where a crystalline being sat. Its body reflected light in rainbow patterns. It looked up as Kyle entered. "Help," Kyle said, trying to keep his voice steady. "Please. My companion is hurt badly. He needs surgery right away." The being stood slowly. It moved with an odd grace like water flowing upward. It came around the desk and looked at Ghost with eyes that had no pupils, just faceted surfaces like a diamond. The being reached out one thin, transparent hand and touched Ghost's head. Ghost's eyes were closed now. His breathing had gotten worse. The crystalline being pulled its hand back. "Species?" it asked. Its voice came through Kyle's translator as cold and precise. "Canis lupus familiaris," Kyle said, using the scientific name. "From Earth. He is a trained rescue animal. Please, we do not have much time." The being walked back to its desk. It touched a panel, and a holographic screen appeared in the air. It moved its fingers through the display, reading information that Kyle could not see. The seconds felt like hours. Ghost made a small sound almost too quiet to hear. The being looked back at Kyle. "I am Dr. Velkoth," it said. "I am the head veterinarian of this facility. I have reviewed the medical scan I took when I touched your animal. The injuries are severe. Multiple fractures, internal bleeding, organ damage." The being paused. "I cannot treat him." Kyle felt his stomach drop. "What do you mean you cannot treat him?" "You are a doctor. This is a medical facility. He can be saved." "I know he can." Dr. Velkoth's crystalline face showed no emotion. The being probably could not make expressions the way humans did. The treatment would require extensive resources, it explained. Multiple surgeries, advanced regenerative therapy, weeks of intensive care. According to Galactic Veterinary Council protocols, such resources are allocated based on cognitive assessment scores and species value ratings. Kyle stared at the alien doctor. He felt anger rising in his chest. "What are you saying?" "Your animal has a cognitive score of 4.3 on the galactic scale," Dr. Velkoth said, as if reading from a report. "This places it below the threshold for intensive medical intervention. The resources required would be better allocated to species with higher cognitive values. I am sorry, but this is standard protocol across all council-approved facilities." Kyle could not believe what he was hearing. Ghost was not just some animal. He was smart, loyal, brave. He had saved lives. Dozens of lives. He had saved those 2 miners just hours ago. "Ghost is not just a number on your scale," Kyle said, his voice getting louder. He is trained. He understands commands in 3 languages. He can find people trapped under rubble when our best equipment fails. He's been with me for 6 years. The doctor remained unmoved. Emotional attachment does not change the protocols, it said simply. Many species form bonds with lower cognitive creatures. It is a common phenomenon. However, medical resources are limited. We must prioritize. Other beings had entered the clinic now. They gathered at the edges of the room, watching the scene. Kyle saw several different species. A tall being with purple skin and too many arms. Something that looked like a floating plant with glowing flowers. A small creature covered in silver scales. They all watched with curiosity, but none of them seemed surprised by what the doctor was saying. "Please," Kyle said again. He hated how his voice sounded, desperate, broken. "There has to be something you can do. I can pay. Whatever it costs. I have credits. I will work. I will do anything." "It is not about payment," Dr. Velkoth said. "It is about proper resource allocation. Your emotional response is understandable but not logical. The animal has served its purpose. You can acquire another one." Something broke inside Kyle at those words. Acquire another one. Like Ghost was a tool. Like he could be replaced like a broken scanner or a worn-out uniform. Kyle felt tears on his face and did not care who saw them. Ghost stirred slightly in his arms as if he could sense Kyle's distress even in his injured state. "You do not understand," Kyle said quietly. "On Earth, dogs are not just animals we own. They are family. They live with us. They protect us. They comfort us when we are sad. They celebrate with us when we are happy. They ask nothing except to be near us. Ghost has been by my side through things I cannot even talk about. He has pulled children from burning buildings. He has found survivors when everyone else had given up hope, and he does it because he wants to. Because we are pack," the watching aliens murmured among themselves. Kyle heard his translator trying to make sense of their various languages. The words came through as confusion, curiosity, and in some cases, something that might have been pity or disgust. It was hard to tell with species so different from humans. Dr. Velkoth touched its panel again. "Security is being called," it announced. "You are creating a disturbance. You and your animal will need to leave. I recommend you return to your ship. If you wish, I can provide a sedative to make the animal's remaining time more comfortable." Kyle wanted to yell. He wanted to demand. He wanted to make these aliens understand. But Ghost whimpered again, weaker this time. Kyle looked down at his companion. Ghost's eyes opened slightly, just a crack. Even now, even hurt this badly, Ghost was trying to stay aware. Trying to do his job. Trying to protect Kyle. 2 large beings in security uniforms entered the clinic. They were built like walls with thick gray skin and small eyes. They moved toward Kyle slowly, giving him space but making their intention clear. He had to leave. Kyle held Ghost closer. His mind raced, trying to think of something, anything. There had to be another option. Another facility. Another doctor. But they were days away from any other station. Ghost did not have days. He probably did not have hours. Then, from across the clinic, a voice spoke. It was human. Female. Calm, but firm. "Wait." Everyone turned. A woman walked through the crowd of watching aliens. She was average height for a human, with dark hair pulled back in a simple tie. She wore practical clothes, not a medical uniform, but something that had clearly seen heavy use. Her hands were clean, but her sleeves showed old stains that never quite washed out. The kind of stains that came from years of medical work. She walked straight to Kyle and Ghost, not asking permission, not waiting to be acknowledged. She knelt down beside them right there on the clinic floor. Her eyes were kind but sharp, taking in Ghost's condition with a professional assessment that took only seconds. The woman reached out slowly, letting Ghost smell her hand even though he was barely conscious. Then she touched his head gently, her fingers finding the spots behind his ears. She whispered something too quiet for Kyle to hear at first, then a bit louder, just 2 words, simple and warm. "Easy, pal." Ghost's eyes opened a little wider. His tail, which had been completely still, moved just slightly. Just the smallest wag. The woman smiled, and it was the first smile Kyle had seen since the accident. She looked up at him. "I am Emma Cole," she said. "I run a veterinary clinic in the human quarter. Small place. Nothing fancy." She looked back at Ghost, her hands now gently probing his injuries with practiced care. "But I have seen worse cases than this. Dogs are tougher than most people think." She looked back up at Kyle. "If you trust me, I can help him." Kyle felt something in his chest loosen just a bit. Hope. Just a small. The human quarter of the station was different from the main sections. Kyle noticed it immediately as Emma led him through a series of smaller corridors. The walls here were painted in warm colors instead of the cold metallic surfaces everywhere else. Someone had put up pictures. Earth landscapes. Forests and oceans and cities under blue skies. It made Kyle's chest tight with homesickness. The floating stretcher glided smoothly ahead of them. Ghost lay still on it, his breathing shallow but steady. Emma kept one hand on the stretcher, guiding it with small touches. She walked fast but not rushed. Purposeful, like she had done this many times before. "How long have you been here?" Kyle asked, partly to distract himself from his worry, partly because he genuinely wanted to know. 3 years, Emma answered without looking back. Came out here with the third wave of human civilian expansion. Figured the traders and diplomats would need someone to look after their pets. Turns out I was right. They turned a corner and Emma stopped in front of a door. It was marked with a simple sign. Earth animals only. Veterinary care. Dr. Emma Cole. She pressed her hand to the panel and the door slid open. Inside, the clinic was small but organized. It reminded Kyle of veterinary offices back on Earth. The walls were covered with pictures of animals. Dogs of different breeds. Cats lounging in sunbeams. A horse with a white mark on its nose. A parrot with bright green feathers. Each picture had a name written under it. Max. Luna. Thunder. Rico. These were patients, Kyle realized. Animals Emma had treated. The clinic had 3 rooms that Kyle could see. A waiting area with chairs that looked comfortable. An examination room with a metal table and cabinets full of supplies. And through another door, what looked like a surgical suite. Everything was clean but worn. This was a working clinic, used daily, not a showpiece like the sterile alien facility. Emma guided the stretcher into the examination room. She transferred Ghost onto the metal table with careful movements, supporting his head and back. Ghost's eyes flickered open for a moment. Emma spoke to him softly. "You are okay, buddy? I know it hurts. We are going to fix you up." Her voice was calm, reassuring. Kyle stood back, trying to stay out of the way. He watched Emma work. She moved, with practiced efficiency, pulling equipment from drawers, setting up monitors, checking Ghost's vitals. Her hands were gentle but sure. She had done this countless times before, Kyle could tell. She pulled out a scanner, more compact than the ones the aliens used, but clearly effective. She ran it over Ghost's body slowly, watching the readout on a small screen. Her face was focused, professional, but Kyle could see the concern in her eyes. After a few minutes, she set the scanner down and looked at Kyle. "Okay," she said. "Tell me exactly what happened. Do not leave anything out." Kyle explained. The mining colony, the collapsed tunnels. Ghost going in first because he was smaller and could squeeze through gaps. Finding the 2 trapped miners, the secondary collapse, the beam falling. Ghost pushing the miner out of the way and taking the hit himself. Emma listened without interrupting. When Kyle finished, she nodded slowly. "How long between the injury and getting him to the station?" 3 hours, Kyle said. "Maybe a bit more. We stabilized him as best we could on the ship, but our medical officer is trained for humans, not animals." Emma looked back at Ghost. 3 hours is not great, but it could be worse. She touched Ghost's side gently, feeling carefully. He has 3 broken ribs. One punctured his lung, but it looks like it has partially sealed itself. Dogs are tough that way. There is internal bleeding from his liver and spleen. Multiple contusions. His left rear leg is fractured in 2 places. "Can you fix it?" Kyle asked. His voice came out rougher than he intended. Emma was quiet for a moment. Then she met his eyes. "Yes. But it will take time. Surgery will be several hours. Then recovery will be weeks, maybe months. He will need constant monitoring for the first few days." She paused. "I am not going to lie to you. It will be hard. For him and for you. But dogs have survived worse. And this guy," she touched Ghost's head gently. "This guy is a fighter. I can see it. Relief washed through Kyle so strongly that his knees felt weak. He sat down heavily in a chair against the wall. Thank you, he said. The words felt inadequate. Thank you so much. Emma smiled slightly. Do not thank me yet. We have a lot of work ahead of us. She started pulling out supplies, setting up IV lines, preparing medications. I am going to need your help. Are you okay with blood? Kyle stood up. I am a rescue commander. I have pulled people out of collapsed buildings and crashed ships. I can handle blood. Good, Emma said. Wash your hands at that sink, thoroughly. Then put on one of those gowns from the cabinet. We need to prep him for surgery. For the next hour, Kyle helped Emma prepare Ghost. She explained everything she was doing. Inserting the IV line to give him fluids and pain medication. Shaving the fur around his injuries to allow for clean surgical access, setting up monitors to track his heart rate and breathing, taking blood samples to check for internal damage they might not see on scans. Kyle watched Ghost's face the whole time. The pain medication was working. Ghost's breathing became easier. The tight lines around his eyes relaxed. He was not conscious exactly, but he was not in agony anymore either. That alone made Kyle feel better. As they worked, Emma talked to Ghost. Her voice was a constant, gentle presence. Okay, buddy, this is going to pinch a bit. There we go. You are doing great. Good boy. Such a good boy. It reminded Kyle of how he talked to Ghost during training exercises or difficult rescues, that constant reassurance, that connection. The clinic door chimed. Emma looked up, frowning slightly. I am not expecting anyone, she said. She went to the door and opened it a crack. Kyle heard voices. Then Emma opened the door wider. A small group of aliens stood in the waiting room. Kyle recognized some of them from the main veterinary clinic. They must have followed. His first thought was that they were here to cause trouble, to stop Emma from treating Ghost. But then one of them stepped forward. It was a Zentari, if Kyle remembered the species name correctly. Tall and thin with purple skin and 4 arms. It held something in its upper hands. The human doctor had said through a translator, You helped my child's companion animal once, a small creature with scales. It was sick. The other doctor said it would die. You saved it. Emma seemed surprised. I remember. Skitter. He had a respiratory infection. How is he doing? He is well, the Zentari said. My child loves him very much. We heard what happened at the main clinic. We wanted to say that we support you. The Zentari held out what it had been carrying, medical supplies. For your patient. Other aliens stepped forward then. Each one had a story. Emma had treated their animals when the official vets had refused. She had stayed up all night with a dying pet to comfort it. She had worked for free when families could not pay. She had cared when no one else would. Kyle watched Emma's face as she listened. She looked embarrassed but also touched. I was just doing my job, she said quietly. You did more than that, another alien said. This one was covered in silver scales with large, dark eyes. You showed compassion. That is rare here. Then more beings arrived. Word had spread through the station somehow. The small waiting room began to fill. Different species, different sizes, different ways of speaking. But they all had the same message. They supported Emma. They believed in what she was doing. Dr. Velkoth arrived with station security. The crystalline being looked around at the gathering crowd with what might have been surprise. Its faceted eyes reflected the lights in strange patterns. This is highly irregular, it announced. This facility is not equipped for major surgical procedures. The human doctor is not certified by proper authorities. The Zentari who had spoken first turned to face Dr. Velkoth. With respect, Doctor, you refuse to help this animal based on your protocols. Dr. Emma Cole is offering help based on her compassion. Which is more valuable? Dr. Velkoth seemed at a loss for words. Kyle had the feeling that no one had ever challenged the alien doctor like this before. Protocols exist for good reasons, it finally said. Resources are limited. We must prioritize. And yet, another alien spoke up. this one looking like a floating plant with glowing flowers. Dr. Cole has saved many animals with limited resources. She makes do with what she has. She does not require expensive equipment or rare medications. She uses skill and dedication. The crowd murmured in agreement. Kyle saw Dr. Velkoth look around at all the assembled beings. The doctor had come here expecting to shut down Emma's operation. Instead, it found itself facing a crowd of supporters. At that moment, another figure entered the clinic. This being was different from the others. It wore an official uniform marked with symbols Kyle recognized as station administration. It was a Kell, a species known for being logical and fair-minded. Its gray skin had patterns that shifted slowly like clouds moving across a sky. Administrator Kelvor, Dr. Velkoth said, bowing its head slightly. I was just explaining to these individuals that this situation violates several protocols. Administrator Kelvor looked around the room slowly. Its eyes, large and dark, took in the crowd. Emma standing in the doorway, Kyle visible behind her, and Ghost lying on the examination table. What protocol specifically? It asked. Dr. Velkoth explained. The cognitive threshold requirements. The surgery took 4 hours. Kyle stood in the corner of the surgical suite, out of the way but close enough to see. Emma had offered to let him wait outside, but he could not do it. He needed to be here. If Ghost was fighting for his life, Kyle wanted to be fighting with him, even if all he could do was watch. Emma worked with steady focus. Her hands moved with precision, each motion deliberate and sure. She talked through everything she was doing, partly for Kyle's benefit, partly out of habit. Repairing the liver laceration, stopping the internal bleeding, setting the fractured ribs, fixing the punctured lung, placing pins in the broken leg. The monitors beeped steadily, tracking Ghost's heart rate and breathing. The numbers stayed stable. Not great, but stable. That was what mattered. Kyle watched those numbers more than he watched the surgery itself. Every beep meant Ghost was still alive, still fighting. About 2 hours in, Emma paused. She stretched her neck, rolling her shoulders. Then she looked over at Kyle. You doing okay? She asked. Kyle nodded. He did not trust his voice right then. Emma seemed to understand. She went back to work, her focus returning immediately to the delicate task in front of her. At one point, an alarm sounded. Ghost's blood pressure was dropping. Kyle's heart jumped into his throat. But Emma stayed calm. She made quick adjustments, added medication to the IV, worked faster but not frantically. After a few tense minutes, the numbers stabilized again. Emma let out a quiet breath. Okay, she murmured. Okay, we are good. Outside the surgical suite, the corridor was full. Kyle had checked once, about an hour into the surgery. The aliens who had come to support Emma were still there. More had joined them. They sat on the floor or stood along the walls or simply waited in whatever position their species found comfortable. They were keeping vigil. For a dog they had never met. For a human they barely knew. Because it was the right thing to do. Kyle had never seen anything like it. In all his time traveling between stations and planets, he had never seen different alien species come together like this. Most of them barely tolerated each other in normal circumstances. But here they were, united by something simple. Compassion for a creature in need. Administrator Kelvor was there too. The station administrator sat against the wall, its gray skin pattern shifting slowly. It was watching everything with those large dark eyes. Observing this unusual gathering, Kyle wondered what it was thinking. What conclusions it was drawing about humans and their strange attachment to animals. Even Dr. Velkoth had returned. The crystalline being stood at the far end of the corridor, separate from the others but present. It watched through the window into the clinic. Kyle could not read expressions on that faceted face, but the doctor had stayed. That meant something. Finally, after what felt like days but was only 4 hours, Emma made the last suture. She checked her work carefully, then checked the monitors one more time. She stepped back and pulled off her surgical gloves. Her face was tired but satisfied. That is it, she said. Surgery is complete. Now we wait and see how he does. Kyle felt his legs go weak with relief. He is going to be okay. Emma came over to him. She pulled down her surgical mask. Her face was lined with exhaustion, but her eyes were warm. He made it through surgery. That is the first big hurdle. Now his body needs to heal. The next 48 hours are critical. If he stays stable, if there are no complications, then yes. He should recover, should, Kyle repeated. Not will. Emma put her hand on his shoulder. I cannot make promises in medicine. You know that. But I can tell you this. I have done everything I can for him. He is strong. His will to survive is strong. And he has you. That matters more than you might think. Kyle looked at Ghost. The dog was covered in bandages hooked up to multiple machines, completely still. But he was breathing on his own. His heart was beating. He was alive. That is all I can ask for, Kyle said quietly. Thank you. Emma squeezed his shoulder once, then let go. She moved to the door of the surgical suite and opened it. The murmur of voices from the corridor immediately stopped. Everyone looked at her. The surgery was successful, Emma announced. He is stable. He will need intensive care for the next several days, but the worst is over. A sound went through the crowd. It was hard to describe. Different species made different noises, but the emotion behind it was universal. Relief, joy, hope. Some of the beings actually cheered, their translators turning the sounds into understandable words. The Zentari who had spoken earlier approached Emma. It bowed its head, a gesture of deep respect in its culture. You have done a remarkable thing today, Doctor. Thank you for showing us what is possible. Emma looked embarrassed again. I just did what any good vet would do. No, another alien said. This one was the silver-scaled being who had spoken before. You did what any good vet should do. There is a difference. Many would not have tried. Many would have followed the protocols without question. You chose compassion over convenience. Administrator Kelvor rose and approached. It looked past Emma into the surgical suite where Ghost lay recovering. Fascinating, it said. The being's voice had a thoughtful quality. I have been observing for hours now, trying to understand what drives this response. What response? Emma asked. All of this, the administrator gestured at the crowd. These beings came from different parts of the station. Different species with different cultures. Many of them have conflicts with each other in normal circumstances. Yet here they stood together for hours, waiting to hear the fate of an animal. Not even an animal from their own world. An earth creature, why? Emma was quiet for a moment. Then she said, because they understand what it means to care about something. Maybe they have pets of their own. Maybe they remember animals from their homeworlds. Or maybe they just recognize that this matters to Commander Martinez and to me. Compassion is not complicated. It is simple. Something is suffering. You help if you can. But resources are limited. Dr. Velkoth's voice came from the back of the crowd, the crystalline being moved forward. I do not say this to be cruel. It is simply fact. Medical resources, time, energy. These things must be allocated efficiently. How do you justify such intensive effort for a creature with limited cognitive capability? The corridor went quiet. Everyone looked at Emma, waiting to see how she would respond. Kyle tensed. He wanted to argue, to defend Ghost. But Emma held up a hand slightly, asking him to wait. She looked at Dr. Velkoth directly. You are asking the wrong question, she said calmly. You are asking about cognitive capability. Intelligence, as if that is the only measure of value. But humans learned a long time ago that intelligence is not the same as worth. Emma gestured back toward Ghost. That dog has saved lives, real lives, sentient beings who would have died without him. He does not save them because he understands complex philosophy or can do mathematics. He saves them because he is loyal, because he is brave, because when he hears someone in trouble, he runs toward the danger, not away from it. She continued, her voice gaining strength. On Earth, we have dogs that detect cancer in humans before any machine can. Dogs that predict seizures minutes before they happen, giving their owners time to get safe. Dogs that pull people from burning buildings. Dogs that find survivors under avalanches. They do these things not because they are smart by your measurements. They do them because they are devoted. Kyle saw several aliens nodding. They were listening, really listening. Emma was not done. You talk about resource allocation, Emma said. Let me tell you about resources. Ghost costs almost nothing to maintain. He eats food. He needs shelter and basic care. In return, he provides search and rescue services that would require expensive equipment and multiple trained personnel. He offers companionship that improves mental health. He gives unconditional loyalty that makes people want to be better. If we are talking about efficiency, dogs are one of the most efficient investments humanity ever made. Dr. Velkoth was silent. Its crystalline body reflected the lights as it seemed to process this information. But beyond efficiency, Emma added more quietly, there is something else. Something your protocols do not account for. Dogs make us better. They teach us responsibility. They give us purpose. They remind us that not everything in the universe is about complex thought and advanced technology. Sometimes the most important things are simple. Love, loyalty, being there for someone who needs you. She looked around at all the assembled beings. That is why all of you are here, not because you have done cost-benefit analyses, not because you have calculated resource allocations. You are here because you understand, even if you cannot explain it, that what happens in that room matters, that life matters, that caring matters. The corridor was completely silent now. Kyle saw Administrator Kelvor's skin patterns shifting more rapidly, a sign of deep thought in its species. Dr. Velkoth stood very still, its faceted eyes fixed on Emma. Finally, Dr. Velkoth spoke. I would like to observe the recovery process, it said. If you permit it, Emma looked surprised. Why? Because, the crystalline being said slowly. I have never considered that my protocols might be incomplete. You have presented ideas that challenge my understanding of veterinary medicine. I wish to learn if there is validity to your approach. Emma nodded. You are welcome to observe, but I warn you, my methods are going to seem very unscientific to you. 5 days passed. Ghost improved slowly but steadily. His vitals grew stronger each day. The swelling went down. The wounds began to heal. He started waking up for short periods, confused at first but calming when he saw Kyle beside him. By the 3rd day, he could lift his head. By the 5th day, he managed a weak wag of his tail. Kyle barely left the recovery room. Emma brought him food, made him sleep a few hours each night on a cot she set up. He showered in the clinic's small bathroom, changed into spare clothes Emma lent him. His crew checked in regularly, offering to take shifts watching Ghost, but Kyle could not leave. Not yet. Not when Ghost was still fighting. Dr. Velkoth came every day. The crystalline doctor arrived early each morning and stayed for hours. It observed everything Emma did. How she checked Ghost's wounds, how she adjusted his medications, how she talked to him constantly, her voice gentle and encouraging. Emma explained her reasoning for each decision, and Dr. Velkoth listened without interrupting. On the 2nd day, Dr. Velkoth asked a question. Why do you talk to him? He cannot understand complex language. Emma was changing Ghost's bandages at the time. She did not look up from her work. He understands tone, she said. He understands that I am here and I care. Studies on Earth have shown that animals recover faster when they receive verbal and physical comfort. Heart rate stabilizes, stress hormones decrease, the immune system functions better. She finished with the bandage and stroked Ghost's head gently. Besides, she added, he is scared. He is in pain. He does not understand why. The least I can do is let him know he is not alone. Dr. Velkoth was quiet for a long time after that. Its faceted eyes watched Ghost, watched Emma, watched Kyle sitting beside the bed with his hand resting on Ghost's side. Finally, it said, my species had companion animals once, thousands of years ago before we achieved space travel. Emma looked up, surprised. You did? Yes, the doctor said. Small crystalline creatures. They lived in our dwellings. They produced sounds that we found pleasant. When we evolved past certain emotional needs, we deemed the animals unnecessary. They were allowed to go extinct. It was considered progress. The doctor paused. I wonder now if we lost something in that decision. Something we did not realize was valuable until it was gone. Emma did not say anything. Sometimes silence was the best response. She simply continued her work, and Dr. Velkoth continued to observe. Administrator Kelvor visited regularly, too. The station administrator was documenting everything, recording observations, compiling data. It interviewed Kyle about Ghost's training, his role in rescue operations, the bond they shared. It asked Emma about her treatment methods, her philosophy of care, her success rates with different species. On the 4th day, the administrator brought something unexpected. It was a small holographic projector. With your permission, it said to Kyle, I would like to record Ghost's recovery progress. Visual documentation to accompany the medical data. Kyle looked at Emma. She shrugged. It is up to you. You are his person. Kyle thought about it. Then he nodded. If it helps other animals in the future, yes. Record what you need. The administrator set up the projector in an unobtrusive corner. It captured everything. Emma's careful examinations. Kyle's constant presence. Ghost's slow but steady improvement. And something else too. The steady stream of visitors. Beings from all over the station came to see Ghost. They brought gifts. Treats that Emma had to gently refuse because Ghost was on a strict diet. Toys that she promised to give him when he was stronger. Cards and messages in dozens of languages. The Zentari brought his child, a small being who stared at Ghost with wide eyes and asked if the dog was a hero. Kyle told the child yes, Ghost was definitely a hero. The visitors did not just come to see Ghost. They came to talk with Emma. They asked questions about animal care. They shared stories about creatures from their homeworlds. Many of them spoke about animals they had known and lost, species that had gone extinct or been deemed non-essential as their civilizations advanced. Kyle noticed a pattern in these stories. Almost every species had once had companion animals, and almost every species had moved away from them as they became more technologically advanced. It was seen as primitive to maintain emotional bonds with lesser creatures. Resources should go to more important things. But now, watching Ghost's recovery, many of these beings were questioning that decision. Was it really progress to give up these relationships? Or had they lost something important in their rush to advance? On the 6th day, Ghost tried to stand. Emma was checking his leg, seeing how the bone was healing when he suddenly shifted his weight. His good legs trembled with the effort. He managed to get his front half up before his strength gave out, but the attempt itself was huge. Good boy, Emma said, her voice warm with approval. Such a good boy. You are getting stronger every day. She looked at Kyle, who had jumped up from his chair. He is progressing faster than I expected. Much faster. Why? Kyle asked. Is that normal? Emma smiled. Dogs are pack animals. They do not like being separated from their people. Ghost knows you are here. He can sense you. That gives him motivation to heal faster so he can get back to doing his job, which is being with you. Dr. Velkoth, who had been observing as usual, moved closer. That is measurable? This effect? Absolutely, Emma said. We call it the human-animal bond. It is one of the most studied phenomena in Earth veterinary medicine. Animals with strong bonds to their owners show improved healing times, better responses to treatment, lower rates of complications. The emotional connection creates physical benefits. She pulled up some files on her tablet and showed them to Dr. Velkoth. Look at these studies. Dogs with owners present during recovery versus dogs recovering alone. The differences are dramatic. Lower stress hormones, stronger immune responses, faster tissue regeneration. The crystalline doctor examined the data carefully. And this works in reverse? The humans also benefit from the bond? Even more so, Emma said. She pulled up more files. Humans who live with dogs have lower rates of heart disease, depression, and anxiety. Children who grow up with pets develop stronger immune systems and better social skills. Elderly people with companion animals live longer and report higher quality of life. The benefits go both ways. Kyle watched Dr. Velkoth process this information. The alien doctor seemed genuinely interested now, not skeptical. It asked more questions. About training methods. About how the bond formed. About whether it could work with any species or only specific ones. Emma answered each question thoughtfully. She explained how dogs had evolved alongside humans for over 30,000 years. How cats had domesticated themselves because living with humans benefited them. How horses had carried humanity across continents, forming partnerships based on mutual respect. How even animals that were not traditionally domesticated could form bonds with humans given the right circumstances. The doctor listened to all of it. Then it asked the question Kyle had been wondering about. Could other species replicate this? Could we re-establish bonds with our lost companion animals? Emma considered carefully before answering. I do not see why not. The principles are universal. Animals need care, consistency, and compassion. If you provide those things, bonds will form. It might look different for different species, but the core idea is the same. She looked at Ghost, who had dozed off after his earlier effort. We humans never abandoned our animals as we advanced. We brought them with us, into cities, into space, to new worlds. Some people think that is primitive, that we should have moved beyond needing animals. But I think it is one of the smartest things we ever did. Why? Dr. Velkoth asked. Because they keep us grounded, Emma said simply. Technology is wonderful, progress is important, but animals remind us that not everything valuable can be measured in data or efficiency. Love cannot be quantified. Loyalty cannot be programmed. Trust cannot be manufactured. These things have to be earned and given freely. Animals teach us that. Kyle felt a lump in his throat. He looked down at Ghost, sleeping peacefully now, his chest rising and falling in a steady rhythm. Emma was right. Ghost had taught him so much over the years. Patience when Kyle was frustrated. Joy in simple things when life felt complicated. Courage when everything seemed scary. Loyalty when the world felt uncertain. Administrator Kelvor entered the clinic at that moment. It looked around at the small group gathered in the recovery room. I have news, it announced. The Galactic Veterinary Council has agreed to review its protocols. My documentation of this case has generated significant interest. Emma looked surprised. Already? The administrator's skin patterns shifted rapidly, indicating excitement. Your patient has become somewhat famous. The holographic recordings have been viewed millions of times across dozens of worlds. Many beings are asking why their own medical facilities do not offer similar compassionate care. That seems fast, Kyle said. The council has been receiving complaints for years about their protocols, the administrator explained. But this is the first time they have seen a clear alternative that works. Dr. Cole's methods are producing measurable results. Ghost's recovery rate far exceeds their models. They cannot ignore that. The administrator continued. More importantly, public sentiment is shifting. Many species are remembering their own lost companion. 3 months later, Ghost walked through the station corridors on his own. His limp was barely noticeable now. The fur had grown back over his surgical scars. His eyes were bright and alert. When Kyle walked beside him, Ghost's tail wagged constantly. He was happy, healthy, whole again. Kyle had extended their stay on the station far longer than planned. His crew understood. The rescue missions could wait. Ghost needed time to heal properly, and Kyle refused to rush that process. Emma had been clear. Full recovery would take months. Kyle intended to give Ghost every single day he needed. But now, finally, Ghost was ready. The last checkup had been perfect. All his numbers were normal. His strength was back. His spirit was strong. Emma had cleared him to return to active duty, though she made Kyle promise to take things slow at first. The station had changed in those 3 months. Emma's clinic had expanded. She now had a full staff, including Dr. Velkoth, who spent half of each day learning her methods. The crystalline doctor had proven to be a dedicated student, absorbing everything Emma taught with intense focus. Other alien veterinarians had come to observe as well. Some stayed for weeks, studying Emma's approach to animal care. She taught them about compassionate treatment, about the importance of the caregiver bond, about seeing animals as individuals rather than just biological systems to repair. The Galactic Veterinary Council had officially revised its protocols. The cognitive threshold was removed. Resources would now be allocated based on need, rather than arbitrary intelligence measurements. It was not perfect, Emma had said, but it was progress. Real progress. More than that, something else had changed. Across dozens of worlds, species were researching their own lost companion animals. Genetic samples were being examined. Breeding programs were being discussed. Ancient texts were being reviewed to understand how those bonds had worked before they were abandoned. Dr. Velkoth's proposal had been approved. The first Shimmerkin had been successfully cloned from preserved DNA. It was just a baby now, tiny and fragile, but it was alive. Dr. Velkoth visited it every day in the specialized habitat Emma had helped design. The doctor talked to it, cared for it, and Kyle could see something changing in the crystalline being. It was learning what humans had known for thousands of years. That caring for something smaller and more vulnerable than yourself could make you bigger, not smaller. Today was departure day. Kyle and Ghost were finally heading back to their ship, back to their crew, back to their work. But first, there was one more thing to do. Administrator Kelvor had organized a gathering in one of the station's public spaces. Kyle had tried to refuse, uncomfortable with the attention, but Emma had insisted. People need to see this, she had said. They need to see Ghost healthy and whole. It gives them hope. So Kyle found himself standing in a large open area with Ghost at his side. Hundreds of beings filled the space. Every species on the station seemed to be represented. They had all come to see the dog that had changed everything. Administrator Kelvor stepped forward. Its gray skin patterns shifted in complex, beautiful formations. 3 months ago it began. This station witnessed something unprecedented. A human refused to accept that his companion could not be saved. A human veterinarian refused to let protocols override compassion, and a community came together to support them both. The administrator gestured to Ghost. This animal was deemed not worth saving by our standards, too low on the cognitive scale, too resource-intensive to treat. But Dr. Emma Cole saw something different. She saw a living being that mattered, a loyal companion that deserved a chance, and she fought for that chance. Kyle felt Ghost lean against his leg. The dog was calm, comfortable with the crowd. Kyle rested his hand on Ghost's head, drawing strength from that familiar contact. Today, Administrator Kelvor continued, we announced the establishment of the Interspecies Veterinary Institute. Dr. Cole will serve as its director. The institute will train veterinarians from all species in compassionate care practices. It will research the benefits of companion-animal bonds, and it will work to reintroduce these relationships to civilizations that have lost them. The crowd made sounds of approval in dozens of different languages. Kyle looked at Emma, who stood off to the side. She looked overwhelmed, her eyes a bit damp. She had never wanted fame or recognition. She had just wanted to help animals. But now she would help them on a galactic scale. Dr. Velkoth stepped forward next. The crystalline doctor moved with more grace now, less stiff than before. I must make a confession, it said. When Commander Martinez brought his companion to my facility, I saw only data. A creature with limited cognitive function, an inefficient use of resources. I was wrong. The doctor paused. Dr. Cole showed me that compassion is not inefficient. It is essential. She showed me that intelligence is not the only measure of worth, and she showed me that my species lost something precious when we abandoned our companion animals in the name of progress. Dr. Velkoth looked at Ghost. This animal has saved lives. Many lives. He does not do complex mathematics or understand advanced physics, but he understands loyalty. He understands duty. He understands love. Perhaps these are the most advanced concepts of all. The crowd was silent now, listening intently. Kyle felt his throat tighten. He had never heard an alien speak this way about Ghost, about any animal. It meant more than he could express. I am working to bring back the Shimmerkin, Dr. Velkoth continued. The companion animals my species lost. But it is not just about the animals themselves. It is about what they represent. Connection, compassion, caring for something beyond ourselves. These are not primitive instincts to overcome. They are advanced values to embrace. The doctor bowed its head toward Emma and Kyle. Thank you for teaching me this. Thank you for not giving up. Emma came forward then. She knelt beside Ghost and hugged him gently. Ghost's tail wagged furiously. He licked her face, making her laugh. She stood up and addressed the crowd. I did not do anything special, she said. I just did what any good veterinarian should do. I saw an animal in need and I helped. That should be the standard, not the exception. She looked around at all the different species gathered. On Earth we have a saying, animals make us more human, but I think it is bigger than that. Animals make all of us more than we are alone. They teach us patience and kindness. They show us unconditional love. They remind us that the most important things in life are simple. Food, shelter, companionship, and love, Emma continued. Many of your species gave up companion animals as you advanced. You thought it was necessary, that resources should go to more important things. But I would argue that there is nothing more important than maintaining our capacity for compassion. Technology will advance, science will progress, but if we lose our ability to care for those who depend on us, what is the point of all that advancement? The crowd was completely still. Every being seemed to be thinking about Emma's words. Kyle saw some of them looking at each other, having silent conversations through expressions or gestures. Seeds were being planted. Ideas were taking root. Finally, Kyle himself was asked to speak. He had not prepared anything. He did not like public speaking. But he looked down at Ghost, then out at the assembled beings, and words came. 6 years ago, he began, I was assigned a rescue dog named Ghost. I was told he would help me find people in dangerous situations, that he had training and skills that would be useful. All of that was true, but it was not the whole truth. Kyle paused, gathering his thoughts. Ghost did not just help me do my job better. He made me a better person. When I was frustrated, he showed me patience. When I was scared, he showed me courage. When I felt alone in the vastness of space, he reminded me that I was never truly alone. He looked at the beings in front of him. 3 months ago, I thought I was going to lose him. When your doctors told me he was not worth saving, I felt like my world was ending, not because he is a tool I use for work, but because he is family, the truest family I have. Kyle's voice grew stronger. Dr. Cole saved his life, but she did more than that. She showed me that there are still people, still beings in this galaxy who understand what really matters, who will fight for what is right even when it is not easy or efficient or protocol approved. He reached down and touched Ghost's head. This dog has saved dozens of lives in his career, but he saved my life long before that, just by being there, just by caring. That is what animals do for us if we let them. They save us in ways we do not even realize we need saving. The crowd responded then, not with words but with something deeper, a shared understanding that crossed species lines. Kyle saw beings with tears in eyes that could cry, saw others with skin patterns shifting in emotional displays, saw still others making gestures of respect or agreement in their own cultural ways. The Zentari who had first supported Emma came forward. It held a small case. Commander Martinez, it said, my people would like to present Ghost with this. It opened the case to reveal a collar. But not an ordinary collar. It was made of woven fibers that shimmered with different colors, embedded with small crystals that glowed softly. This is a hero's mark in my culture, the Zentari explained. We give it to those who have saved lives at great personal risk. Ghost qualifies many times over. Kyle took the collar with trembling hands. It was beautiful, clearly crafted,